When I was 21, I served as a camp counselor in Rhode Island, and this is when I was telling you I had a revelation. I was watching all the kids that I oversaw and seeing how they interacted with each other, and they were close to each other, and they were splashing around in the water and having a wonderful time. And I realized that I never did that as a kid. I spent a lot of time by myself in the woods with my dog, and so it was a very difficult summer. I was 21, 22, and every day I would just relive my childhood and how I didn't have those experiences. And so then I gathered up my courage and I said, you have to face this. You have to wear your hearing aids. You have to tell people you wear hearing aids. You have to be confident. But at that point, I didn't have much energy left. And so, and that's when I entered I started to become a little depressed. And my audiologist at the time, she said, this is normal. A lot of people who have hearing loss get to a point in their lives when they do come to these realizations that they've missed a lot, that it takes a lot of energy to hear all the time, and that they just tend to interact. As I was telling you, I think people with a hearing loss interact a little bit differently than normal hearing people. I started to stay home and stay in my room and not socialize, and I was tired of constantly making that effort, constantly trying to hear, constantly trying to be like everybody else when I wasn't like everybody else. And so then I had severe depression, and I withdrew from college, from my university. I sat out half of a semester.
The fact that I actually grew up with a sister who has hearing loss also, and she was also about 5 or 6 when she lost her, when they found out that she couldn't hear well. And so I'm used to people having hearing aids. With you, I've always tried to hear, to make sure that I heard exactly what you said and the other way around. So we do hear, we do make sure that we hear what the other person is saying.
And he has been always very patient with repeating something I don't hear. I don't think, and perhaps my parents will say different, I don't think we ever sat down and had a conversation as a family. Kathleen has a hearing loss. Here are some things, here are some ground rules that we're going to have so that she can be included. For example, I remember growing up at the kitchen table when we were eating dinner, and I have 2 older sisters and my parents, so there's 5 of us. And I remember sitting at the kitchen table and just everybody's talking. My family is Irish Catholic, talking about religion and politics, and I couldn't hear everything always. Everybody's talking. So I would get up from the kitchen table and leave and go back to my room and read a book or just be sad because I was tired. I couldn't hear anything, and it's almost like I felt I didn't have a chance to talk. But there's also the flip side is that I also could have maybe stood up and said, hey, wait a minute, guys, I have something to say, but I tended not to do that. Their approach was to treat me like a normal person, even though I had a disability, a documented disability. And, but it wasn't out of neglect or anything. I think that was just, you can do, their attitude was, you can do whatever you want to do. The hearing problem is not going to stop you. just go do what you want to do. And but on the other hand, I never talked to my sisters. I never talked to my mother or father about the frustrations that I had, because I had to deal with it. I had to just be normal.
Yeah.
She was in first grade, and Ed and I went out of town for a weekend, and we left her with a neighbor. And when we came home, Beverly said, do you think Kathleen can hear well? We said, of course she can. And this is the amazing part to me. She had compensated, I guess, because we had no idea. And we took her to the audiologist, and they said moderate to severe hearing loss and high frequency.
Right.
I remember the first graph they showed me with the audiologist. I didn't understand what they were talking about. She would say, here's, the megahertz up in. I was like, okay. I didn't know what that meant, and I felt rather silly because they, everybody we went to would say, the SH sound. I could get that if somebody said the SH sound is something she has trouble with. That I could get, but they would talk about frequencies and it was like, I don't know what you mean. What does she hear? That's what I had. And I think we all didn't exactly know what her ability was. And she certainly didn't tell us that she was having trouble. And I think, quite honestly, her sisters ignored the whole thing.
The approach that we took was to just deal with it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I
Led
was
by
noticing.
You
Yeah.
were the one that said, we'll just deal with it, and we followed along.
Right,
Yeah.
and that we didn't talk that much about feelings, and
Yeah.
because one of my coping mechanisms was to leave the kitchen table
Right.
and go back in my room and be by myself.
Yeah.
And I think I just didn't know how to talk about it, and I certainly wasn't going to talk about it because I didn't want to be different.
She did not want to be different. And it was only when she got older and in high school that it became clear to us that when we were all sitting around the dinner table after dinner and talking and carrying on, that you would notice after a bit that Kathleen was gone.
I was wondering why we didn't talk about it when I was younger, but I think it's just because I was doing okay, and we were all so caught up. Two older sisters, we were all always busy, but I think as a young person, I was just like, well, I just want to be normal. I just want to be like everybody else, so I'm going to continue to
Right.
keep that approach,
And all of this takes time. But I think there was, when you have a child that has something that it needs special attention, and you yourself can't quite get a grip on it, for one thing. I had a very hard time understanding what was going. Don't you think we did? And then Kathleen did not want to be singled out, so you have that idea of, okay, maybe we shouldn't do this. Mm-hmm. And so it was constantly trying to say, what's good for her? What in the world what are we doing here anyway? And trying to feel our way. And I really think if I had to do it over again, I would be more firm with her about, honey, clearly you're not getting some things. But this is a child who took advanced placement calculus. She kept doing things that were good, so it made us think, I don't think she's having a hard time. But it slowly unfolded that she was, in fact, missing a lot, socially and academically. She was missing it, and she was working 10 times as hard to stay in place. It slowly unfolded, but I think for a long time she made us believe that this was okay. She was doing all right. And I will say, not to over dramatize, but there's a certain amount of sadness that I feel in that the learning curve was very steep for me. It took me accepting and then figuring out what we were supposed to do, and then by that time she was a young adult and we had missed a lot of opportunity. I don't think it's hurt Kathleen, but I think primarily it's because she wasn't going to let it hurt her. But I do sometimes feel sad because I think there is that period, it's like any kind of grieving thing where denial is part of it. And when they said she has a hearing loss, I think there is that. I don't think she does really have that much.
Well, I don't think we discussed it a lot because we knew that the damage was permanent and it was not going to be a matter of undoing something or improving. It was going to be more of a coping situation that you'd have to go through.
But I also think in terms of, and I mean, Ed will agree with this, if there's going to be someone worrying in the family, it will be me.
We worry about that sometimes.
Yeah. And I think there was a lot of it that I kept to, I mean, I worried.
Did y'all have conversations about
We
me?
didn't have very many conversations because,
Well, we knew from day-to-day living what was going on, and I mean, teach in school and with your hearing aid sessions, you know. So I guess.
But I think, yeah, I think there are different ways that people approach it, and I think Ed he had the information. Okay, we got the hearing aids; they're the best hearing aids we can get at this point. Ed just kind of will do that. I, on the other hand, wonder if, you know, were we doing enough?
This is interesting, I guess. I mean, we're all adults here. But I didn't,
And of course, we're going, okay, what's coming? What's coming now?
Careful, that cat's not over.
the topic of sex education. I mean, I didn't hear those stories
Yeah.
about the birds and the bees
Yeah.
among my friends. And so I brought it to the kitchen table.
Yes.
I said, so, where do babies come from? I was 13 years old or 14. I was pretty old. Well, my sisters fell out of the chair.
I mean, they thought, you don't bring that up in front of mom and dad. Don't ask them that kind of stuff.
So I missed out on some pretty significant conversations that you usually have with your friends, you know, behind the schoolyard.
And in that same vein, I think I had some concerns as Kathleen got older, you know, pretty girl, guys asked her out, and I kept thinking, you know, how much about modern dating, what's the expectation, does she get? When she went off to college, it bothered me a good deal because I thought we're not even anywhere around. And I said to both of her sisters, talk to her, tell her.
And they didn't.
And they didn't.
What?
They never took me aside and
I know, but I remember thinking, she's
Doesn't
up
sound like
there,
that.
she will be influenced by all manner of people. And I didn't feel like we had a good handle, and I said to both of them, just call her and just talk, ask her about how it's going. And going out with any guys, you know, what do y'all do, and da-da-da-da. And I think they both thought, Mom,
Ew.
ooh, we're not going to talk.
She's a big girl now.
yeah, she's a big girl.